Now, though, it's a big American welcome to America's favorite TV chef, Mr. Ashbell McEleveen.
That's my version of my mom's pecan pie.
Beautiful.
Who better to tell us all about it than Chef Ashbell McEleveen? Give us a taste of Christmas from South Carolina. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas. Lovely. Merry Christmas.
The home cooking of the American South has made its way across the Atlantic to London, England, where South Carolina native Ashbell McEleveen opened his new restaurant, Ashbell's.
I could have done it in New York, but I'm glad I came here to do it because I think people were much more receptive and willing to have something new, even if it is essentially English, Irish, Scottish food being brought back to them 350 years later.
That's right. Ashbell says few people realize the influence of European cooking on the food he grew up eating, the food he calls Southern American regional cuisine.
The food is a cuisine. It is a world-class cuisine.
So in London's upscale Notting Hill, Ashbell is actually cooking up foods from back home.
Okra. This is like the real stuff. I grew up in a family that thought good food was a birthright. And literally, if you wanted anybody's attention, you learned how to cook something good.
There's his father's barbecue.
My father was such a great cook. His family specialty was barbecue. The recipe for barbecue goes back 150 years.
His mother's fried chicken, Maryland crab cakes, the pound cake a friend's family has been making from the same recipe for 125 years.
Pound of butter, pound of flour, pound of sugar, pound of eggs. And, we gusset it up and, added some fruit and some whipped buttermilk, which I love. And it becomes this amazing, amazing thing. And for me, just having that took me back to every single church.
My own personal cooking experiences started off actually with making Betty Crocker brownies from a package. We were living in Japan at the time. And so I remember going to this, so consequently the notion of a packaged mix was something that sort of represented America in many ways. And I remember going to the supermarket and buying these packages of brownies and coming back and making them and being very distressed that you had to wait 2 hours for the brownies to cool before you could actually cut them open and cut them in. So I made those, and then I had a Betty Crocker cookbook, and I actually cooked popovers and a whole bunch of things from that particular cookbook.
It is something that we all experience and we all eat, and we all have deep prejudices about what we eat.
People talk always about good taste in art, and so we're trying to just provide that.
We've been interested in using food as a way of getting at art.
Connecting it together is actually rather tricky too. Connecting the fields of design and art and food. And it's time to smash his face.
We like to eat things. We like to do things that have never been done before. We like to have fun doing this.
We started cooking together. We found that there was an amazing link.
And it was a commitment to taking things to an extreme.
We decided to write a book. And the book would describe a series of experiences that we hadn't yet experienced. So we had to go and do those experiences so that we could write the book. Pasta paintings that people boil and eat.
A 45-foot loaf of bread.
A still life of sculpture, but then you eat it as food. Our first potluck food penny.
Guests buried up to their waists in the sand.
Building an actual floating island.
They do end up becoming a lot bigger than we had planned for them to be.
When you have a great meal with other people, it's a kind of moment that's created, and then you remember that moment.
We are working with something that's very material, i.e. food. Yet we're trying to have people see it in a different light. A moment when it transcends beyond the sum of its material parts.
La cocina hispana, la maravilla de esa cocina. incorporada de tantos países latinoamericanos, siendo colombianos, mexicanos, puertorriqueños, cada cual trayendo una receta, una tradición individual a cada uno. En mi casa, mi abuela Isabel traía una receta de su mamá Joaquina, que las raíces, siendo de África, siendo de España, donde cogían ese piloncito y le metían sus hierbas y sus ajos y su sal y la mezclaban todos los días, trayendo ese amor, trayendo ese sabor a la mesa. Lo interesante de la cocina hispana es que es una cosa que es como un virus. La gente hoy en día, siendo música latina, siendo el teatro latino, la cocina latina, es muy interesante a todos. Y el internet hoy en día, eso sí hace, esa cocina se pone mundial, donde uno puede mirar y ver todo lo que hay para nosotros, de nosotros, para disfrutar toda la gente. Siendo eso, lo que puedo decirles es que esa cocina hispana nos va a traer una cosa tan y tan maravillosa a todo el mundo que tenemos que verlo y va a ser otra cosa más grande de otro mundo. Because we all speak the same language, I think the opportunity is there for us to cut across all of them and share across all the different Latin American nations that exist currently. I know one thing is, when you go from one Spanish household to the next, the one thing that you'll always find a pot on the stove. At the end of the day, we all share that, the love of food.
My roots are from Sicily, France, and southern Italy, and who knows where else. Now, when I serve a dinner, it's coming from generations that came before me, and then all of the curiosity that I brought to the mix and the various cultures that I came in contact with. Asian cultures when I traveled Asia, my Indian food teacher, Julie Sani, my extended Mexican family and all that they taught me about moles and spice rubs and other ways of steaming cooking. So all of that comes to the mix when I'm cooking, and I don't see that on television, I don't see it on the internet, I don't see it anywhere. And I think there's just this whole piece missing. Food and culture, it's global,
I really feel very, very, very proud that I've been involved in helping so many people and training so many people in wine. And I was walking into a restaurant, all of a sudden the wine director comes up and says, "Darren, I was one of your students." Or someone comes to call on me to sell wine for a wholesaler, or one of my students calls me up and says, "I just started an importing company," or "I've just opened up a wine bar." Inside of just a few minutes, I can tell people what to look for in a corkscrew, why one corkscrew is a good corkscrew and worth the money, and why another corkscrew that may cost more is not a good corkscrew and should be avoided. How to use a corkscrew to open a bottle of wine and not worry about breaking the cork. Why do we decant wine? Well, we decant wine because if we have a large format bottle, it's easier to pour it into a decanter and pour the glasses from that. If you have a wine that's old and thrown sediment, okay, on that, it's a little tricky. You have to be shown how to do it. Doing that on videos so people can actually see it instead of just reading about it is the best way to explain how to do it.
10 years of shooting chefs and restaurants and their food all over New York City. So the only way I could relax was to cook a big meal and invite all my friends over. And so for hours during the evening, we'd be eating and drinking good wine. Eventually, I met a guy named Ashbell. And it was from there that everything just really was upside down. I mean, we have been on a culinary venture, if you will, from Europe to the United States, back and forth for the past 12 years.
In La Rue Saint-Honoré, the center of Paris, luxe and fashion and all things expensive, we find Chef Gérard Salé cooking Moroccan influences in a stripped down Parisian style. It means that the food is evolving, and that's a wonderful thing.
Je fais surtout la cuisine pour faire plaisir aux autres.
Et là, ça frappe beaucoup. On parle que de la tradition, il y a le Ritz et
De
tout
la
ça.
grande joaillerie, oui.
Oui. Et là, vous avez fait quelque chose de très léger.
Oui, de très léger.
Et de très parfumé.
Oui.
Et c'est différent.
Enfin, c'est complètement différent parce
Ouais.
qu'auparavant, j'étais chef du Plaza.
Food and culture, it's global, you know.